Currently here on this channel, I've been working on a car audio system for a Grand Cherokee. You can see our system lineup here on screen, several amplifiers, several speakers, but in this video, we're gonna focus on our subwoofer system. I've been planning on using these Focal P30F 12-inch subwoofers in a sealed box, but you know what? I think I'm gonna do something a little bit different since I have these 10s that I can use. I'm actually going to do two different subwoofer boxes. One box is going to be much larger, take up a lot more of the cargo area, but in exchange for taking up more cargo space, I'm going to get a lot more output by using the two 12s and probably something like a ported enclosure. The other subwoofer box has the goal of being as small as possible, taking up as little room in the cargo area, so I can just have it for kind of everyday listening and going and getting groceries, that kind of thing, where we need to use the cargo space. And for that, I'm going to use two of these shallow mount 10-inch subwoofers in a sealed enclosure, and that is what we're going to be making in this video. To kick things off, my friends, wham bam, let's come up with a plan, man. So to kick things off with a plan, I of course first measured the depth, the width, and the height that I had available within the vehicle. Once I had that, I opened up my modeling software and started to model this enclosure. Now again, the goals behind this enclosure are to keep it as small as possible, to keep the subwoofers somewhat hidden, and to keep them protected so that we can put cargo on top of this enclosure or in the cargo area without worrying about it hitting the subwoofers. By having these subwoofers in a sealed downfiring configuration, we accomplish those goals. One of the big reasons I like to go through the time of actually modeling this is it allows me to actually determine the exact internal air volume, even with these complex shapes in the corner, to make sure that I have the proper air volume for this sealed enclosure. Now you can see I have some template work on the front here along with my logo, some grill mesh. I also wanted to match the look of the factory cargo liner on top of the enclosure. The cargo liner looks like this down at the bottom. I'm not going to be showing the addition of these templates in this video, but it'll be upcoming in a future video where I complete this box. In this video, we're going to be focusing on making this overall shell. We have our typical back, our two sides, our front piece, and you can see in the corners here that I've done a stacked type profile in order to give a rounded shape to each of those corners. I'm also going to have a cutout here on the front and on the back to allow the sound from the subwoofers to escape. Finally, the baffle that holds the subwoofers itself is actually one of the layers that is built in to this stack. These shapes in the corner here are unique. I'm going to show you guys a cool new tool that allows us to make them, or if you don't have a ton of tools, how you can actually purchase them and make these stacks on your own. So now that I have everything modeled, I'm going to put some dimensions on this and print myself off a little sheet that I can use for the build. And with that, I have all of the easy cuts done for the square boards. Now I need to make these corner profiles. To make these, I'm going to be using the new Mobile Solutions Smart Corners. You can purchase these as templates to copy and make your own, or you can buy them as the already made wooden pieces in a 20-piece kit, all of the same radius. The vertical wooden boards that I cut fit perfectly into this corner, which allows us to save a ton of material when it comes to stacking. The kit that has the wooden pieces requires very few tools. I can just apply wood glue, and then I can use the included dowels along with a hammer to assemble these pieces together. Now I've only built the quick corners to be 3 high so far because I am going to be doing downfiring, so now I need to attach the layer that we would call the baffle. The baffle actually has the cutouts for the subwoofer holes. I start with laying out the center location of each of these holes. Now you could sketch out your cutout circle and then cut it with a jigsaw, but in my case, I'm going to be using a circle template because I want this cutout hole to be perfect and perfectly match the diameter of the subwoofer. I rough cut my holes on the jigsaw, and then I use double-sided template tape to stick the template in position, and at the router I'm using this flush trim bit which has a bearing on top that rides against the template and then flush cuts the material down below. You can see by using the flush trim bit here on the router we get a really nice clean cut hole. It looks really nice and perfect. It will perfectly match our subwoofer. Cutting out the holes was the easy part. This baffle does have somewhat of a complex shape. I do actually need to allow some clearance for these vertical boards that are going to go on the side. So I've marked out that cutout that I need to make. The same for the front board here. I need to cut and remove that material. And then these are going to permanently attach to the baffle because the baffle is actually going to have that curved geometry on it as well. So I'm going to get some wood glue applied to these. I'm going to brad nail them in place, and then I'm going to start cutting everything flush on the router. Now that I've removed that material, I have this shape for my baffle. Looks a little something like that. And if I lay the pieces in place to start to mock things up, you can see how this is going to come together. The two subwoofers will be here, the magnet will be on this side, they'll be firing down, and I do need to make some cutout holes in this geometry to allow the sound to come out of the downfire area. To make that cutout, I'm gonna use this little template shape that I fabricated up. I'm gonna stick this in place and cut this material away. I've done that on both sides of the box now, so if we lean down, you can see that we have the clearance underneath. The next step here is, since this side of the enclosure is actually going to be the airspace, I need to build that up using the quick corners. Should take no time since these go together so fast. Those stacks are looking good. Just in case you're wondering, the reason I added this 1/4 inch piece of material is I needed to add just a little bit more airspace, and I took some video that I'll be showing you guys when I show you the full tool overview. So since those are done, now I can start piecing together the sides. Oh, that's so satisfying, of the box. Now real quick, before we get into that assembly, when we add a subwoofer system to a vehicle, we need a way to take the factory signal and convert it to RCA line level outputs for our subwoofer amplifier. A great way to do this is to use the Audio Control LC2I active line output converter. Many factory systems will actually reduce the bass as you increase the volume in order to protect the stock speakers, but when we add subwoofers, we no longer want that to happen, so the LC2I has AccuBass built in, which restores that bass. It has a ton of other features as well. If you want to see a full video that I did about it and learn more about how you can use the LC2I to integrate a subwoofer amplifier into your factory system, check out the link down in the video description. A special thanks to Audio Control for being a monthly channel sponsor and helping make these videos possible. Getting back into the build now, I'm going to use normal construction techniques, just applying wood glue to the two different mating surfaces and then add some brad nails to hold the wood in place while the wood glue dries. I repeat this process to add the sides of the enclosure and then of course the back. Now that I have all the sides on here, I made sure that I did a nice bead of glue on all of the inside corners. I just want to make sure that I get a really good seal inside of this box. And also in the meantime, you can see that I added the holes with the threaded inserts that will hold the subwoofers in. If you want a full video about how I did that, you can check out the link up in the corner of the screen. Before I attach the top of the box, I want to do a quick mock-up and mount these subwoofers. And here we have it, the subwoofers in their downfiring position. Obviously the top is still off. And if we take a look underneath, we can see what those subwoofers look like while they're facing down. I need to mount the top of the subwoofer enclosure now, so of course I put down some wood glue and then I brad nailed this into place. And notice that it's just a rectangular shape. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to flush trim and make everything match perfectly over on the router. Now the enclosure is definitely really starting to take shape here. I do want to soften this hard edge. It just doesn't have very finished of a look. So I am going to use this right here, a round over bit, to add that radius on the edge. By doing this, I get a much more smooth look on top of the enclosure, and I think you guys will agree it looks a lot better. Now I could just carpet this and call it a day, call it good as is, but hey, I want to add a little bit more detail here to have it match the inside of the vehicle. So that is why I made these other pieces that I showed you guys in the planning process. I'm going to give you guys more details on these and show you how I finish things up in an upcoming video. To catch upcoming videos, I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Don't forget you can learn more about the quick corners down in the video description. Thank you to Audio Control for being a monthly channel sponsor. Learn more about the Audio Control LC2I and why you need one to integrate a subwoofer amplifier in your system down below. Also, thank you to Anthony, Bernard, John, Brian, Thomas, Jeremy, Doug, Steve, Emmanuel, Jerry, and the rest of the Patreon membership team. A big thanks to all those guys for making these videos possible.